When I first started backpacking, I made every rookie mistake you possibly can. I packed way too much gear, I wore the wrong type of clothing, I didn't have the right trail maps, and I had no idea really how far I was supposed to be able to hike every day and how to track my mileage and a lot of other things. I'm Backpacker Luke, and I've teamed up with a fellow YouTuber and backpacker to go through everything that we wish we knew before we went on our first backpacking trip, and to collaborate and give you two separate views on this subject from people who really know what they're talking about with backpacking. Today, we're fixing all those mistakes for myself, and whether you are completely new to backpacking or this is your 50th trip, here are 10 things that I wish I knew before I took my first backpacking trip. The goal of this is that we had to learn a lot of these lessons the hard way for ourselves, so I'm trying to save you that struggle for yourself. Today, we have a special guest to share his insight on this topic, Tim from Tim Collins ADV YouTube channel, where he posts content all about camping, hiking, backpacking, and adventure. He does vlogs, gear reviews, and trail tested tips and tricks to help you get the most out of your time outdoors. So I'm really excited to have him here today. Tip number one is that less is more. So as I did my first backpacking trip, I packed as much as I could into my pack and everything that I needed, plus everything else that I thought I might need, and definitely some things that I really actually didn't need at all. So the mantra, less is more, means a lot with backpacking. Every ounce feels like a pound after you're on the trail for a while. So just pack what's necessary, and then if you want to, pack a few luxury items, but don't overpack. Less is more. That's a really big one. Tip number two, and if you've been watching this channel for any time, you know I like to harp on this subject, that cotton kills. Do not wear cotton anything on the trail with you. No socks, no underwear, shirts, pants, all that kind of stuff. Just stay away from cotton. Do merino wool, do nylon, do polyester, things that breathe and that wick moisture, things that are going to dry out more easily and quickly. And also don't lose their shape and their form after being sweat in or getting wet. If you get caught out in a rainstorm and you're wearing cotton, you're just in trouble. It creates rashes and all sorts of really just uncomfortable issues. So just stay away from cotton, and you're gonna help yourself out a lot for your first backpacking trip. Tip number three is that your backpacking pack is really, really important. So do not skimp on your backpacking pack. Make sure it's fitted to you correctly. If you need help getting it fitted, you can go watch my video on how to fit a backpack, or go seek help from somebody at like an outdoor outfitting shop. They can help fit you. Pretty much everybody at those types of shops knows how to fit a backpack, at least they should. So get your backpack fitted to you correctly. Make sure you have the right pack for you, one that's the right size, one that has the right amount of carry capacity. And I also have some videos on backpacks in general, for backpacking packs, so you can go check those out as well if you want to. But yeah, definitely just make sure you pick the right backpack for you. Tip number four, and I kind of alluded to this in the intro, but know the mileage that you can do and know the mileage that you want to do, and know how to track that mileage. So that's really important. My first trip was kind of a disaster. It did get me to end up loving backpacking, so I can say that for it. But at the same time, that first trip, I did basically all the wrong things. And one of those things was that we brought a paper map with us, but we didn't really have the mileage marked out on the map. We didn't have a good way of tracking our mileage. So all we brought with us was one of those really simple pedometers that tracks your steps. And we did like the quick math, like, okay, every step's about 3 feet. And we kind of like tried to figure it out that way. But then even worse than that, we lost the pedometer in the first couple of miles of the trip. So all we had was a paper map, and we were just basically like best guessing how far we probably went and how far we need to go. And it was just terribly mapped out for ourselves. That was like completely on us. I can't believe I actually enjoyed backpacking after that first trip, and I can't believe I did it again. But yeah, know your mileage, know how much you need to do, how much you want to do, how much you can do, and know how to track it and keep track of it really well. So definitely a big one, know your mileage. Now we're gonna bring in Tim with a few more of his tips on the 10 things that you should know before you go on your first backpacking trip or your 50th one. So let's bring him in here.
Hey everyone, I'm Tim. Thank you, Luke, for having me on your channel today. Really appreciate it. I'm glad we could connect on this kind of like really cool stuff that we share in common. So my first thing that I wish I knew before I started backpacking is that you don't need the most expensive gear to get started. Focus on packability, weight, size, that kind of thing, but you absolutely don't need the most expensive gear. I started out with stuff that I got from Walmart, and I just kind of built it up over time. So especially if you're new to this, if you're just getting into backpacking and you're not even sure yet if you're going to enjoy it, I wouldn't recommend buying the most expensive gear right out of the gate. Just kind of replace things as you go and just build upon your setup. For me personally, it's kind of like an ongoing evolution. I'm always changing things. I'm always trying to like add something to make my pack a little lighter, or remove something, or find something that's dual purpose, things like that. I just continually build over time. So I didn't start out with the most expensive gear. Some of my stuff now is a little bit pricey, but I've proven to myself that like I'm serious about this stuff and I'm gonna wanna do this for the long term, so I invest a little bit more in gear. So yeah, you definitely don't need the most expensive gear to get started. The next thing I wish I knew was to test my gear out before I got on the trail. So that means, setting your tent up for the first time, maybe at home or at a local park or somewhere where you're close to home, where if it doesn't work out, if parts are missing, if it's just a malfunctioning piece of gear, you can find that out before you get on the trail. Same thing with your stove. Just light it and maybe try cooking from home on your camp stove one time before you go out into the field with it and expect to be reliant on it. You want to make sure that it works, and you want to make sure that you know how to work with it. So definitely test everything out. I would even recommend, if you have a place near home or in your backyard where you can camp out for a night and literally test everything out before you go out on the trail and hike miles and miles into the wilderness, where you are completely reliant on everything working and you knowing how to set everything up and work with everything. The next thing I wish I knew, definitely a big one for me, is that animals are usually not a threat. This was a big fear of mine in the beginning of camping and backpacking. I was always worried about animals, but the truth is, as long as you're careful with your food and you properly store your food, you really shouldn't have any major issues with animals. I've not had any encounters with dangerous animals on the trail. I mean, I've seen mountain lions, I've seen bear, I've seen moose, I've seen all the dangerous animals, but I've never had an issue with one where I felt like I was unsafe. And camping at night, especially when I'm solo, everything sounds so much louder. A little rustling in the bush, sounds like a bear, it's probably a squirrel, realistically. Animals are just not that likely to bother you. As long as you don't startle them while you're hiking, as long as you don't leave food out at camp, you really shouldn't have any issues with animals. This was a big fear of mine solo camping, and it was really all for nothing. There is nothing to be worried about. Just do the right thing and you really shouldn't have any issues. And the final thing for me is that being cold at night will make for a terrible night of sleep. So do not underestimate the value of a good sleep system. That's your sleeping pad, your sleeping quilt or sleeping bag. I use a quilt, but you want to make sure that it's rated below the temperature that you might encounter. If you think you could get down into the 30s, you're probably going to want like a 20-degree bag just to be on the safe side. Now, you don't need to go overkill. If you're going to be in the 30s or 40s, you probably don't need a 0-degree bag. That might be a little too big and bulky for the purposes of that trip. Typically I would say, something in the 30-degree range, 30-degree Fahrenheit, is typically good for most fair weather hiking and backpacking. So just don't underestimate the importance of a good sleep system, a good quality sleeping bag. If you can afford down, that would be great, because it's a lot more packable and it lofts up more. But if that's beyond your means, then a synthetic bag will work as well. Make sure that you pay attention to the R value of your sleeping pad, that is the insulative properties of it. The higher the number, the more insulative it is. So definitely, keep that in mind if you're in the market for a sleeping pad. Definitely get something with a decent R value that's also comfortable. I have been cold at night. I've camped out in 0-degree weather when it was snowing and no tent, just sleeping on the ground. My sleeping bag was like a 0-degree sleeping bag, and then I had another sleeping bag over me, and I did stay warm through the night, but it sucks being cold at night and not being able to sleep because of it. It just makes for a miserable experience. So just make sure that you go into it prepared for the temperature that you might encounter, and maybe overestimate a little bit. So thank you, Luke, so much for having me on your channel. I really had a lot of fun sharing these insights and these tips with you guys. Thank you so much for having me here, and hopefully we can do this again in the future. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
All right, back to me. Tip number 9 is always have a bail plan. So this is one of those things that you don't want to think about very much, because thinking about failing isn't really fun, but you need to have a good bail plan. You need to have a way to know your exit points, know trailheads you can hop off the trail if you need to, if you get injured, or you just cut out too much mileage for yourself and you need to cut it short. Whatever it is, just have a good bail plan. Make sure that somebody off the trail knows where you are and what your route is and what your mileage is, and a good way to contact you. This is a really good kind of plug for something like the Garmin inReach, or like a GPS device that you can kind of send an SOS if you have to, which is like worst case scenario. But have a good bail plan, know what you need to do to get off the trail, know what your trail heads are, and this goes along with having a good map for yourself and knowing your mileage. But yeah, have a really good bail plan. It's going to save your life if you need it, and hopefully you never even have to use a bail plan, but you have it there if you need it. Tip number 10 is make sure you do not skimp out on your water filtration system. What I don't mean by this is buy the most expensive one there is. What I mean is you can go for a budget option, something like the Sawyer Mini. It's really cheap, but it's really durable, really effective, and does the right job, but it's not cheap. It's not going to break on you in the middle of the trail, and it's going to filter water well, so it's tested and proved to do a good job. So you can get the really expensive ones, you can get the really heavy duty ones, the ones that pump water really quickly, and all of that kind of stuff. That's totally fine if you want to do that. Or you can go for a more budget option, but don't cheap out, don't skimp out on your water filtration system. You may think for whatever reason that you can do it. You might think that it's clean water, as long as you drink from a running stream or whatever, you're fine, but really don't skimp out on it. You're gonna make yourself sick. You're gonna dehydrate yourself on the trail, and it's going to be a lot worse for you than if you just brought a filter with you that you can trust. So don't skimp out on your water filter. So there you go. That is 10 things we both wish that we knew going on our first backpacking trips, and that we wish we knew before we started all of our backpacking journeys. Hope this has saved you some trouble, some headaches, some, whatever it is, some broken gear, and I hope it's been really helpful for you. And a really big thanks to Tim Collins ADV for just collaborating on this video. Really had fun with it, really appreciate it. Make sure you go check out his channel. I'll leave a link to his channel down in the description below. So go to his channel, watch his videos. He's awesome, I love his videos. He talks about some really great stuff. So make sure you go check him out. Also, if you have any tips that you would like for me to include in another video, leave them down in the comments below, and if I can, I'll actually put it in another video. So I make videos like this all the time. I would love to get your input on them and put those tips in the video and all that kind of stuff. So I like being able to communicate with you guys and have sort of back and forth with you and just get to know this community more. So make sure you leave stuff down in the comment below, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.